Hi everyone, today I'm going to answer all the questions that you guys submitted about minimalism. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first question is, when and why did you start getting into minimalism? It all started that first year I went abroad to Spain, and I was naive, I overpacked, I had 2 huge suitcases which I checked. One of them was 85 pounds, so I had to pay extra. I also had a carry-on and a personal item. I had so much stuff that I couldn't even carry it by myself, and I had to rely on the kindness of strangers just to get from the airport to the train to where I was going. After about 5 months, I realized I had only used about 20% of what I packed, and to make matters worse, I had done so much shopping during that time as well. It was such a frustrating experience that 1 year later, when I joined the Peace Corps, I decided to travel with hand luggage only. So at this time, minimalism was just a tool I was using to make travel easier, and I wasn't applying it to any other areas of my life. In fact, I was still living a very consumer-centric lifestyle. After Peace Corps, I went to live in Korea for 3 years, and during that time, my husband and I collected so much stuff. It was so frustrating when we were leaving, and it seemed so wasteful, and we were going through everything, and there was no way we could ever bring it with us because we do travel with the airline luggage limits only. So after what I would call a very stressful travel experience, we ended up in Malaysia, and it was around that time that I saw a house tour on YouTube by Light by Coco. That was the first time I ever had a visual of what a space would look like that was clutter-free, that was practical, that was only filled with things that were useful or beautiful. So that's when I started to get more into minimalism, and what I found is a lot of the advice that's given out there from other minimalists about how to downsize just wasn't really working for me. It just wasn't clicking with me because it was also logical and rational, and I'm a very emotional person. So it wasn't until I picked up Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, that everything clicked. And I was so inspired, I went through my whole house and pretty much decluttered it in just 2 days. It was her book that really helped me to visualize the kind of space and lifestyle I wanted, and with that clear picture, that clear goal in mind, I had the motivation I needed to see the entire process through. And that's what I love about the KonMari method. It's not just a tool for minimalists, but it's something that everyone can use. Does being a minimalist sometimes make you feel unambiguous or boring in any way? Never. In fact, I feel a lot more interesting than I ever did before. I have so much more time to focus on my priorities and do the things that I love. I spend so much more time outdoors, I'm developing new skills and hobbies all the time, and I'm inviting so many more people into my home to have meals or just hang out. So generally, I find life to be much more interesting. Can you share how you stay motivated to be a minimalist? How do you control all your wants? If I want something, I buy it. So in that sense, I don't really have to control my wants. I suppose what's changed is my desires, and I don't have the same desire for stuff that I used to. In a personal example, I have very little desire to buy any personal care or household products because most of them contain fragrance or questionable untested ingredients. I also try to avoid buying clothing from synthetic fabrics when possible, so those 2 things alone rule out a lot of possible temptations. As I transition into a more low-waste lifestyle, I'm also trying to phase out plastics and find materials that are more sustainable. So I guess in short, my standards for a purchase have been raised so high that there are very few items that actually qualify. There's also the realization that if I have too much stuff, I'm going to lose my mobility. The benefits I've experienced far outweigh any of the alternatives, so I've never really struggled with motivation. I've never looked back to my old lifestyle of overconsumption and wanted anything to do with it. How do you stay organized and minimal? I stay organized with a mindset adopted from Marie Kondo, and she teaches that tidying is no more than deciding whether or not to keep something and then where to put it. And with the KonMari method, this is a one-time event, so after you've tidied your house, you're left only with the simple task of putting something back where it belongs after you used it. How do you decide which items are necessary to keep and which to get rid of? I use Marie Kondo's method of holding each item and deciding whether it sparks joy or not, whether it gives me that thrill, that excitement. Now, because I move around a lot, of course, sometimes I find myself in a situation where I have more things that spark joy than can actually fit into my suitcase. So then I like to use a strategy which I call ranking. And I start to rank items in categories from the things that spark the most joy to the things that spark the least. And then I have a clear picture about what things I can let go of and discard, since I simply can't bring everything with me. And you can use that same strategy if you're struggling with a certain category. Maybe you admit that you don't need 25 t-shirts, but they all spark joy. Put them in a row, physically in a row, and then look at it that way and see if there's anything you can let go of. Which thing did you think you wouldn't be able to live without and now you don't miss? This is a difficult question because there's honestly not a lot that I've ever thought I couldn't live without, and that's just because I spent a lot of time in third world countries where I've seen how little people really do need to survive. I would say that I used to think that I could never live without tampons, and since getting a menstrual cup, I do not miss them at all. What were some challenges when you adopted a more sustainable and environmentally responsible lifestyle? Now let me just be clear, adopting a more environmentally sustainable lifestyle is still very much a work in progress for me. Some challenges I'm still facing are composting in an urban setting, and more so because I'm in Japan, just generally finding food that's not in packaging. We don't have farmers markets where I live, we don't have bulk food shops, so it's really difficult to find food out without the packaging, and there are perhaps some creative options out there where I could source those things, but because I don't speak the language, it's even harder to find out about them. What are your favorite YouTube channels and Instagram accounts for inspiration? My favorite YouTubers are Light by Coco, Mimi Icon, Expedition Happiness, and The Daily Connoisseur, which is Jennifer L. Scott's channel. I also follow all of them on Instagram, and then there's a few other Zero Waster accounts that I follow, Intentionalism and Bea Johnson's account, Zero Waste Home. What is your favorite kind of music? I like Spanish music a lot, especially Cuban salsa. I also like instrumental music, and that's because I find the lyrics to be sometimes a bit like noise, that I'm going to be thinking about whatever the lyrics are about, but with instrumental music, my mind can just kind of wander and I can think about anything without distraction. How do you use your essential oils, and what are your favorite blends? At the moment, I mainly use them for diffusing, and my favorite scents are Ylang Ylang with grapefruit. I also use them topically for tension headaches, so if I'm having a really bad headache, I'll mix maybe peppermint, lavender, and frankincense in a carrier oil, and then I'll rub that on the back of my neck, and that can help a lot. So that wraps up all the questions for today. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions on my video and on Instagram. I had a lot of fun putting these two videos together, and I'll see you guys in the next video.